Welcome to Pesto Comics Audio Edition. This is the entry for October 30th, 2024. Con Journal. A Newmarket in Newmarket. Tabling at the inaugural Wayside Creators Con. Welcome back. This newsletter is coming about an hour later than usual. I could lie to you and tell you that it's because I'm just getting ahead of daylight savings time this weekend, but everything just caught up to me this week. I doubt anyone is eagerly awaiting my update at noon every Wednesday, but if that's you, feel free to let me know your disappointment with me in the comments. I'll be back to my regular time next week. I've been looking forward to this past weekend as it felt like a big milestone. My last Canadian convention for 2024. Next year remains mostly a mystery as I'm on the waitlist for 3 Fan Expo run cons. Toronto Comic Con, Fan Expo Vancouver, and the big one, Fan Expo Canada. That's a long time from now. We still have a long, cold winter season to get through between now and then, and at least 3 Kickstarter campaigns. We'll talk about all that as it comes. But for now, let's get into some updates and reviewing the weekend at Wayside Creators Con in Newmarket. Project updates. 7 days until Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1. 1 week and this project is live. Any of the authors included could tell you that it's been a long time coming. I've reviewed hundreds of entries and came out with the cream of the crop. I'm very excited to share this with everyone. I'm hoping for a huge launch so we can repeat this on an annual basis. It's a lot of work, but getting these authors in front of new audiences, ones that I know would be fans of the stories within, is very rewarding. If you like anything that I've written in the past, you're going to love all these stories. Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1 will be on Kickstarter starting next week on November 6th. Archetypes Issue 2, crowdfunding now. Anyone who grew up in the 90s or early 2000s can remember going to the grocery store and perusing the magazine racks. The internet was still in its infancy, so this was the primary way you're getting your information, especially for niche stuff like comics. Wizard Magazine was an easy pickup for me. Last year, I wrote an article for Archetypes 1 which harkens back to those magazines with a mix of heavy metal in 2000 AD. It's a really cool project that's giving indie creators like myself another platform to grow, and I'm very grateful to be a part of it twice now. Event updates. Thought Bubble coming soon. I'll be brief on this update as I cover it in the main story, but a reminder that I'll be at table C14A in Red Shirt Hall. And of course, I'll be hosting the workshop Crowdfunding Indie Comics at 11 a.m. in the Queen's Suite. Now, let's review the weekend that was. A shop like no other. I've mentioned my love of Wayside Comics and Coffee in this newsletter before. I've seen a lot of examples of the cafe/comic shop concept out there, and the environment's always been more comic shop than coffee spot. Sure, you have your game nights and your opportunity to chat with fellow comic fans, but Wayside is closer to a proper community hangout. It's like if the gang from Cheers also reads comics. Plus it's unique as the entire shop, from the owner Omar to the patrons, really embrace indie creators. It's not just a regular comic reader who's there to pick up their weekly DC or Marvel pulls. It's readers who are interested in the medium of comics, regardless of the brand. Moreover, they want to know what local creators are up to, and I've actually made more than a few sales off the spinner rack at the store. So when Omar mentioned that he was planning a convention, I knew I had to be part of it. It ended up being serendipitous as I had a hockey trip planned with my brother and that fell through. Dang day jobs. I was going to get some serious FOMO if I wasn't there myself in some form or fashion. It's great to be a part of the inaugural con. That said, not everything was perfect. Out in the cold. Before I say anything too negative, I really want to mention that Market Brewing were excellent hosts. The inside of their venue was pretty great. It felt like a natural extension of the cool environment you get over at Wayside. However, I was outside, albeit with a lot of other really awesome creators, a lot of which I already knew from chatting online, or maybe they listen to this podcast or read the newsletter. The risk with a late October in Ontario is you don't know what you're going to get weather-wise. Although it was 25 degrees Celsius the week before, it was closer to 9 degrees Celsius throughout the day, with the sun only peeking out occasionally. Between the cold weather and how the tents were hidden behind the brewery in the parking lot, there weren't too many patrons that came to see us. Almost everyone that came by the table were fans from the shop and knew how to find the place. The location, not being terribly walkable, didn't allow for anyone who didn't make a special trip. Unsurprisingly, given the turnout, this was the 4th con in a row that I have not made table. All that said, this was easily the best experience I've had of all of them. There's a few reasons for that. A comic convention with comics. Every convention I've been to this year, I've had some form of the same complaint. There's rarely much respect for those of us trying to push comics at these comic conventions. Celebrities or cosplay or Pokemon cards or wrestling or stickers or buttons or pins take precedence over those of us trying to sell our stories. This was not the case at all with Wayside Creators Con. This was a show that was about comics above all else. You could really feel that throughout the show. Aside from seeing all the cool work that everybody had on display, there were some advantages to not having so many patrons at this convention. Sure, it would have been great to make my table back, but the networking was better than any convention I've been to. Getting to pick other creators' brains about how they approach this whole business, learning tips and tricks, or even just complaining about how it could all be going a lot better business-wise for all of us trying to make it was kind of cathartic. It was truly a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends. I met a lot of people that I had known only online and put faces to names. I said it early on that the networking was easily the best part of the day, and that continued to be true right through to the last moment when the unfortunate rain began to set in. It's way too early to talk about it, but some of the connections I've made at this con will spawn projects coming in the new year. It'll be a different approach than what you've seen me do in the past, but if you've been listening or reading this newsletter for a while, you might be able to figure it out. Speaking of meeting cool creators, different approaches to the same thing. One of the highlights of the day was a panel with Fellhound and Amelia Strilchuk. Being tucked away on a tiny stage in the corner of the sales floor while everyone was wheeling and dealing was a little bit different than what I'm used to panel-wise. Yet, it was a lot of fun getting to talk about marketing comics and hearing the different approaches to getting your books out there, especially given the different levels we're all at. Amelia and I were on opposite ends of the spectrum with every answer, which was interesting, with Fellhound acting as the tiebreaker. As we ended the panel, Amelia made a great point of saying that the person that I described as my ideal reader was actually her, even though our approaches to finding those readers were entirely different. I learned a lot from our brief conversation. I hope to run into both of them around the con circuit soon. Conrad was an excellent host as always, asking a lot of interesting questions that I didn't have immediate answers for. A lot of times I was caught thinking out loud, but I think it led to some interesting insights. Being in a brewery and having an extra beer while we were up there definitely didn't hurt in getting the words out. The most surprising moment of all was when we finished our panel and thanked everyone. A lot more people than I assumed were actually listening as they clapped and thanked us for the talk. It was almost like a podcast playing in their ear as they were going about their business, until we all said thank you at the end of it. I definitely enjoy having these talks, and I'm going to try to do them at every convention that I could get myself into. The question is, which cons am I going to aim for? A night of the future. In talking to Omar, it was clear that this year was really a proof of concept more than anything. There were a lot of lessons learned, and many things that can be improved. If Wayside gets to grow this convention to what they hope, it's going to be one to travel to from abroad. That takes some funding, and frankly, some help from the city to make it happen. But if they get it, this could become an epic festival rather than just a regular con. As much fun as I had being a part of this one, that future vision is something I need to be a part of. Personally speaking, with this con being 4 out of 4 that I haven't made table, I'm going to need to reevaluate the approach going forward. Do I just focus on panels? Do I try and chase the table rate every time? Am I doing this for the long game of getting my face out there with the public, or do I want to spend my time networking instead? Right now, most of my sales are coming from Kickstarter, which I thank all of you for helping with, of course. When I look at my sales on Kickstarter, 90% are coming from the US, and those aren't people that I'm reaching at a local con in Canada. Therefore, maybe my best approach is just to go as an attendee or get a professional badge where those are available and get on more panels, which I love doing and being a part of. It's so fun getting to talk to people before and after panels too, instead of running back to Artist Alley. Maybe this is a focus going forward, rather than being trapped behind the table and trying to make a few bucks. That said, as I've previously mentioned, I've already applied to 3 more cons so far in 2025. What I didn't share is that I've done so with my good friend and Instant Ink comic book podcast co-host, Roberto Villacava. That will help with table fees quite a bit as we're splitting it right down the middle. Maybe not having to chase that full table rate will make it a lot less stressful. We'll see how it goes next year, but first, 1 to go. In just over 2 weeks, I'll be going to Thought Bubble in the UK. This con has been on my mind for months, as I have no idea what it's going to be like when I get there. I don't imagine I'll have too much on my table, as bringing anything over the border is a challenge, let alone the limitations of not being allowed to make sales to UK citizens directly. I'm planning on bringing something unique and exclusive to folks at Thought Bubble, just so that I have something to share and stand out from the other 500 vendors that'll be there. I won't be alone though. I already know that I'll be meeting Aaron Thompson in the flesh for the first time after talking with him online for at least a couple years now. I'll be able to meet up with my new panel buddy, Amelia Strelchuk, as she'll be tabling there as well. Maybe I won't be as lost as I think. It'll be kind of refreshing to go in having no expectation of trying to make my table back. This event is just for me to visit and meet people on the other side of the pond that have supported my work with all these projects. It'll be easy to find me since I have a table, rather than just milling about the floor. I'll share how all this goes once I get there. But first, my focus is on launching Big Smoke Pulp next week, and I have lots more to share before the whole year is up. And that's it for this week. Coming up on the Substack, November 6th, Don't Skimp on the Pulp. Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1 launches. Why I admire the pulp era and how it influences my work. November 13th, I'm no artist, but I try. My adventure with Inktober 24. And November 20th, Con Journal. Just look for The Lost Canadian, the last con of 2024 Thought Bubble. And once again, I want to thank you for listening. As I'm looking at the time right now, it is 12 o'clock and I am still recording. Therefore, I am late. I know, again, most of you probably don't listen as soon as it comes out and eagerly await that clock ticking at noon to hear this podcast, but I do appreciate you doing so anyway. I will try to be on time going forward. This one was a little trickier just because I had to be at the con on Sunday to write about it on Monday. And yeah, just everything caught up with me this week. Got a few projects on the go. Big Smoke Pulp launching next week, so I put a lot of energy into that. And yeah, I just didn't have time to record until Wednesday afternoon, unfortunately. But that's okay. I'm glad you're here. I really appreciate it. Big project coming up. Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1. Check it out on Kickstarter. There's a link on pestocomics.com that'll take you there. There's a link on bigsmokepulp.com that'll take you there, or just search it on Kickstarter. We have a handful of followers right now. We're at 41 last check, but if you do follow, getting that first day to be a big day really changes the trajectory of how the whole project goes. And this being the first prose publishing project under Kickstarter for us is a big, big deal. Because hopefully, if this goes well, this launches a whole list of projects under the publishing arm of things. Not to mention that I get to repeat this next year with a whole new host of authors and maybe some returning ones. But yeah, so many great stories in there that I really would love to share with you. So we'll talk next week. I'm going to go in depth, not just with what's available, and it's not full on sales pitch, but I'll definitely let you know what's available and all that. But yeah, we'll also talk about why am I doing this? Why did I bother doing a short story anthology? Why didn't I just release a novel? Who knows, right? Do something else. Just do more comics. Why not a short story collection of comics? Something like that. So there's reasons for all of it, and I'm happy to share all of it, and I will do that next week. But once again, I just want to thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk next Wednesday, November 6th. For the Americans out there, stay strong, go vote. I really hope that things get settled relatively quickly. Doesn't sound like it will. Here's hoping. Take it easy out there. Love your neighbor. All that cool stuff. Have a great week. Talk to you next time.